Well, welcome back to another episode of the Way UK podcast, and we are at Big Church.
Ooh.
Come on, in collaboration
Yes.
with Yes He Is and Justin Brayley. We're so excited to be here. My name's Enya. This is Izzy.
Hi.
And we are joined with a very special pair of guests. We have John and Jade Reynolds with us. Everyone give a little, yeah.
Thanks, guys.
How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good. Yeah, loving the weather.
Good to be
loving
here. We're at Big Church. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So good.
And we're kid-free as well, so that's always a plus.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Who else can
Enjoying
relate to? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, parents
yeah.
know out there. Yeah.
It'd be great if we could like do a little introduction. Like, who are you guys? What do you do? All the things. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm John. You are?
I'm Jade.
Yeah.
Your wife.
My wife, that's it. So
Great.
mind blank for a minute. We've got two kids, Elijah and Arily, who are 9 and 6. We met at Bible college about 12,
A long time
13
ago.
years ago.
15 years ago.
Some years ago. And I was a youth pastor for years, and then I shared a video online one day that went viral, and I kept doing that because people seem to connect with our stories and connect with our journey. As we don't call ourselves this really, but it's a quick way of saying it, an interabled couple. All that means is got disability.
Mixed ability.
Yeah.
Which is every couple, really.
And then I found out I've got ADHD, so I've also got a disability. So sort of interabled, maybe. I don't know how that works. But and now we do content creation full time and preach and speak and do those kind of things.
And we're authors.
Oh yeah, written a book.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, about your life.
Cheeky book plug there.
Get it in the bookshop,
Yeah.
can't you?
Yeah, Able to Life, buy it in the bookshop. Yeah, really reasonable. I think it's one of the cheapest ones there, but it's also one of the best. So go for it. And if it's not one of the cheapest, don't quote me on that and still buy it. Thanks. Cheers.
Best plug. Could you guys give us like maybe like a little snippet as to like how you guys came to faith? Like, what's your background? Like, did you grow up Christian? How did you meet Jesus? And then also, how did you guys meet each other? Like, we know you met at Bible college, but like, who spoke to who first?
Give us
like,
the juice.
Yeah, the tea.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian family, so I kind of always felt like I had a faith. But I probably would say I started to take my faith more seriously when I was about 10. And I chose to get baptized. And so, yeah, I've kind of like, I don't have this like big story of like, conversion from not being a Christian to being a Christian. So I guess that's why God gave me paraplegia, because at least it made my story more interesting when I share it with people, So, yeah, so that happened when I was 12.
Theologically, that's right. That is right.
Checks out. Yeah.
So that's basically my faith journey, really. John's is a little bit more interesting.
I wasn't a Christian until I was about sort of 17 or so. Just started going along to a secular youth group, but it was in a church. And I realised that one of the guys leading it was a vicar, and he was only 27. And I didn't understand how that could even happen. I thought you had to be at least 80 at the time. And he was very down to earth and cool and like just really great. And it
was
kind
just
of
everything that you weren't, really.
Yeah, it was everything I wasn't,
crazy.
everything I wanted to be. And
Sorry, guys, I can't help but roast him at a time.
no, he was more just everything I didn't realise Christians could be, if that makes sense. I wasn't one. I hadn't really grown up in those circles. I thought it was either Ned Flanders or Doc Cotton or those kind of people. I didn't realise that you could just be a normal person as well. And so, yeah, I kind of got chatting to him, went along to church more. And long story short, it was kind of this gradual thing where I realised I can't have meaning or purpose or all the things I deep down believe I do have if I wasn't made with those things and they weren't bestowed on me by a creator. I could make them up maybe, but I can actually have them. And the more I looked into it, the more I realised actually there are very good reasons to have faith. And yeah, it kind of all came together for me.
It's great.
And how we met in the washroom, where all good romances start. I was doing my annual wash at uni.
Well,
It's
you
great.
could tell, because what did you call your washing basket, John?
Yeah, well, Jade came in with all her clothes mounted up on her lap, and I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like,
There's got to be some pics to being in a wheelchair, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
You just pile things up.
I just said to her, the first time we'd met, I just said, "Haven't you got a laundry box? Like, if they're not reached Wales yet?" And she said, "Don't you mean a laundry?" Well, no, hang on. She actually said, "Oh, don't you mean a laundry basket?" Because that's uncanny. I know some of you thought Jade was speaking there. That's actually me. But she said, "Don't you mean if you didn't understand that?"
No.
Translation, she said, "Don't you mean a laundry basket?" And I was like, "Oh, damn, I did mean that." But I just had to style it out, and I doubled down And then later sent her a load of links on Facebook Messenger because I Googled laundry box and baskets came up, but they were called boxes.
That's the first time I saw your petty side.
Yeah, it was very smooth.
Like 20 links.
It's very smooth.
Off the get-go, to be honest.
Yeah.
Nothing
Straight
changed.
Early introduction. She knew she'd struck gold.
So yeah, that's how we met. And then, but you were like kind of chasing me down for quite a long time, trying to wear me down. And then after about 2 years, I was like, "Oh, go on then. I'll give you a go."
No, it's not how it happened. I just started chatting really a little bit, didn't we, after I'd left? And
you stalked me online.
Yeah. And you were like, "Yeah, go for it." You don't win the lottery and tear up the ticket, do you? She saw me. She thought, "Yeah, sure, of course."
Oh, come on.
Great.
Great.
This is what I have to put up with, girls. You're seeing this now.
But yeah, it was basically gradual, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's lovely. So a key part of your story is you have a disability. And I guess this is more looking at Jade. It's ADHD as well,
No,
I
it's
guess. So
fine.
we can come to John afterwards. But Jade, like, how have you found that with your faith? Like, when it first happened, you were 12, so that's 2 years after your baptism. So, like, growing up into that, but then also getting to know Jesus through the years.
Yeah. So, like I said, I kind of had my own faith from about the age of 10, I'd say. And then I think it really kind of set me up well for becoming paralyzed when I was 12. And it's really interesting because I think when people think of disability, I think they think, "Oh, wow, like you've had it really hard," or, "Oh, wow, you had a lot to go up against in life." And on one hand, yes, because the world is not designed for people in wheelchairs. I mean, thank goodness I've got this monster of a wheelchair, otherwise I would not be able to do these hills today. But, so the world isn't designed for people with disabilities. But actually, I very much see it as like having a leg up, so to speak, because like with God, it kind of like through my faith, I think it just shattered a lot of the illusions that we buy into from a young age. I think particularly in our culture, we're really obsessed with like autonomy and being independent and this self-made man or woman and I did it my way and all this kind of stuff, and it's really celebrated in our culture. And being kind of paralyzed at age 12, I was like, well, I can't even dress myself on my own. I can't even, get up and down a curb on my own. So what does that mean for my value and my worth? If I can't kind of see myself as this big independent person, then what does that mean for my value? And I think that's where my faith really kind of kicked in, because it was like, actually, being a child of God is the most fundamental part of who I am, more than my disability, even though that is a big part of my life. That actually, being a child of God and knowing that actually God's created us to live in community and to rely on one another. And actually having a disability is not a weakness, but actually it's a strength, because you really get to experience relationships in a deeper way. And I think that's how God wanted us to experience relationship. There's an intimacy. All my friends have carried me. All my friends have had to piggyback me to a toilet somewhere in a field. Like, that is just my life. So
we do live in a home. It's not
do,
her everyday life.
We
I'm
do,
not like,
yeah.
you better call one of your mates if you need a wee.
Yeah, that's true. But, so like, I know like the quality of my friendships are so much better than maybe if this had never happened to me. I might have lived my life just with shallow friendships. And so I think actually like I've learned a lot through having a disability, and I think my faith has only kind of made it even better. And I think having a disability has almost made my faith stronger, because I've been able to see through all the noise of life and actually get to the heart of life, really, and why we're here.
I actually really love that you said that your faith almost set you up with your disability. And I think a large part of like life is about perspective, right? Like, how do we see things? And I think sometimes we can have like a really skewed view of God. And I just wanted to ask, maybe like, how has your perspective of God like kind of changed? And maybe speaking into your relationship as an interabled couple, like how has like your perspective of God changed as you guys have grown deeper, like in relationship together? If you guys could like speak to that, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think with kind of, faith really setting me up for my disability, I think I want to kind of unpack what I mean by that as well, because I think when this happened to me, I had a lot of people say to me, why would God let this happen to you? And that was being asked by Christians and non-Christians. It was like this common question that I'd get asked. And I remember just being really actually confused by the question, because I'd been reading my Bible and I was like, when I read my Bible, it's just full of people going through really quite traumatic situations, like far worse than what I'm going through. And it's like, God's never promised that we won't have a hard life. He's never promised that we won't have trouble. Like, actually, he promises that we will. Jesus actually says, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. And it's like, actually, like, you can't escape struggle. Like, you are going to, it may not be a disability, it might be something else. It might be, you know, family dynamics, it could be health, it could be all sorts of things. But actually, what God does promise us is that he will always be with us. And so I think it's having the right expectations of God, because I think sometimes people feel disappointed, and maybe that disappointment can turn into bitterness because they think, well, God, I thought I was going to have this great life where you were going to give me everything I wanted, a family, you know, great finances, a home, whatever your heart desires. And actually, like, God doesn't promise us those things. He doesn't. And so I think it's trying to see God kind of, you know, as kind of who he really is, and he's there for us and he's present. And actually, I don't know if you've ever gone through anything tough, but like, not being on your own is the like biggest relief. Like, there's nothing worse than going through, like, I always think I used to have a fear of being stuck in a lift, which is ironic now I'm in a wheelchair because I use lifts all the time. But before I was paralyzed, I literally be like, oh my gosh, I can't get in a lift. And I remember thinking, if I'm alone in the lift and I get stuck, that was like one of my worst nightmares.
Now it would probably be being stuck with me.
Which, yeah, probably trumps being on my own. But no, but generally, like, but actually I thought, oh, but if I'm with people, I'd use a lift, because I'm like, well, I won't be on my own. And like, that's a silly example, but I think in life, I think knowing that we're not alone really helps. You know, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think like in terms of what we've learned about God, I think over the years, I think it is that the longer we've had the blessing of living, the longer you realize God's promises are true and he is faithful. And just the amount of times we've had moments where we're like, well, what will we do? Like, we had I've been made redundant for 2 different churches because they closed the role of youth worker. And every single time after one happened, just something else was almost already in the pipeline. Like, and it just feels like God has had this blessing on us and this kind of being there. Every time it feels like, where are you and what are you going to do? Within days or sometimes hours, it feels like the next thing. We found out that we were moving to St. Luke's Blackburn to be part of. I don't work there now, but we still go there. And we found out, we basically had the conversation about me becoming the youth pastor there. And an hour later, after having this conversation and feeling so much peace, hadn't got the job yet, but we just loved the conversation we had. And I then did go on to get the job. But an hour after that first conversation, I got a call saying I had been made redundant. And like, we were even just saying, if that had been an hour the other way round, even just going into that conversation being like, I really need this job now and things. And so there's just been so many times people, before we were doing social media even, like, we just had people help us raise money for a new wheelchair for Jade and things. Like, people helped crowdfund for that. And again, it just felt like we were thinking if we can even get half and then save half, and then felt like within days or a week or whatever, just we had everything. Like, and so like, we've never like being like rich or anything, but it feels like with God we've had everything we've needed every step of the way. And I think there is that, like Jade said, that the more you realize how weak you are, the more likely you are to turn to God. And then when you turn to God, you realize he is all you need. So I think that's been just really common, hasn't it, for us?
I also, I'm reminded of, for reference, my dad is also disabled. He is blind. And so I have grown up with, plan is down. I've also grown up with disability in my life. And so you think about God and you think about this promises where he heals lots of people, and like, what does that mean? And there was something you said, Jade, about people's bitterness towards situations that reminds me of what my dad taught me, which is the first time in the Bible when God says he's a healing God, which is in Exodus when they've exiled, they've left, and they're basically complaining, saying there's no water for us to drink, this water's too bitter. And God makes the bitter water sweet. And that is where he first says in the Bible that he is a healing God. So it's nothing about physical healing. It's about making bitter things sweet. So, like for my dad, has God healed his blindness? No. But is he bitter? No. So has he been healed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And same for you
That's
guys.
great.
Like, are you still in a wheelchair? Yes. So in the way we understand healing as humans, have you been healed from your being paralyzed? No. But are you guys bitter? Like, not at all. And I think that is an incredible work of God in your life that we can see so clearly on social media. And I guess you receive people like messages and people talking to you on social media all the time. Like,
Yeah.
how has that been?
Yeah, it's good. Like, I think people, one of the big things that we love being able to do is to really normalize faith, because I think, like I shared earlier, being 17 and not being a Christian, like I can remember what it's like. I remember I went to an all boys school, and there was a lad who really bravely, it wasn't a Christian school, stood up in front of everyone and shared his experience he'd had at a Christian festival where he'd prayed and the Spirit had he'd basically been slain in the Spirit. He'd felt overwhelmed by the power of God, and he'd just sort of fallen over. And I was about 15, a couple of years before I started thinking about faith, really. I just remember turning to my friends and being like, what? Like, that's not faith. Like, that's delusion. Like, you need to be like sectioned. Like, what is going on? Like, and so I think because I can remember how alien and how weird that sounded to me, mostly because I just didn't really understand it, I hadn't had any experience of it, I think the opportunity to normalize it, because our social media grew through sharing just funny stories and things, and we never wanted to bait and switch and then suddenly be like, gotcha, now, do you know the Lord Jesus? Like, because I think a big part of that is, it doesn't matter if you follow somebody sometimes, if the content isn't the kind of content you would watch, you won't see it necessarily. So we felt that there's such a great place, and you guys, the way, do it incredibly well for Christian content, and even for stuff, I think you straddle it really nicely of like asking those good questions so that people who might be open to it still get to see it. And that's kind of, I guess, what we aim to do as well a little bit now. But I think that we knew that if we suddenly went to Christian content, we would only have Christians follow us. And that's amazing, because we love being able to encourage believers. But equally, that's not how we started. We didn't want to see a load of people unfollow. And we thought, if God has given us a platform that have people who don't know Jesus yet, as well as people who do, how can we do that in a way that, I guess, just like the pastor guy who was 27 and just normal was for me, how can we kind of be like that? Because we know what we believe, we know why we believe it, we know that it is out there for people who've never experienced it, because a guy walking on water and feeding people from nothing and healing the sick and raising the dead and coming back to life is insane if you have never seen anything like that. That's why we call it a miracle, I guess. But we also believe it's true with all our heart, because when you have experienced that love and when you have seen those miracles in your life, whatever that healing looks like, and even just God's goodness and the fact that it just doesn't make sense without a God, then I think it emboldens you to be able to talk about that in a normal way. So a lot of our content will still get trolls and things. We can tell a funny story about our kids. The other day, I pointed in church. And so we just tell stories about our kids. If you don't follow us, you don't know loads about us. We do a bit of banter about disability and things. I'll tease Jade and she'll tease me. And we'll joke about our kids and just tell stories mostly. And I told one the other day, because I pointed in church and I said, oh, Arilee, look, to my 6-year-old, it's communion. You like communion? She was like, where? And I went, just down the front, like communion. She went, I can't see it. And I went, it's literally there, like the bread and the wine. And she went, oh, I thought you said chameleon. And I was like, no, like, why'd there be a chameleon in church? Like some sort of Noah's Ark reenactment.
Yeah.
And so we shared that. But even on that, just a silly story. Someone's like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear you believe in the crazy sky daddy and blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, oh, my goodness. And so you will get it. But I think it's just a cool opportunity to, I guess, be able to witness stuff. And through lives as well, we'll get asked loads of questions around, like, why hasn't she been healed? Like, why hasn't Jade been healed? Or, like, why do you believe in a God who's allowed your wife, or often even caused your wife, to become paralyzed? And I think I remember you saying a really good thing to me around people will always explain things away. So with healings in the Bible, it's almost always a sign for people. Jesus does one healing in the temple with the withered hand. The rest is out and about. So it's almost demonstrating to people It's pointing to other people as well. So most of the miracles are relatively public as well. Other people see what's going on, not all, but a lot of them. And so it builds everybody's faith. The disciples it builds their faith that Jesus is who he says he is. People see the goodness of God. The person who's healed is encouraged, and the people who see it are encouraged. And I think we've often felt that Jade doesn't need to be healed to have more faith. Like, it's not going to change anything for her, really. Like, she might come for a run with me a bit more often or whatever. Well, actually, that's not
you
true.
run. You don't run anywhere.
She might encourage me to go for a run a bit more often and see if I can keep up with her. But like, in general, it's not going to change her faith. It's not going to change her eternal destiny. She's saved already. But I remember saying to her, but lots of people know you as, and even more so now, we said this before we were doing online stuff, lots of people know you as like the girl who's in a wheelchair and things. And so do you not think it would point people to God? And I remember you saying that loads of people, it might, but lots of people, a bit like even in the Bible when Jesus heals the blind man and people are like, yeah, that's not him, it's just someone who looks like him. Like, people will explain away anything if they don't want to believe. You said some people would probably go, we don't know why she became disabled and we don't know why she got healed, like, but it wasn't God. And people will still make reasons. And so I think
like we're in quite a unique position because we're almost like a double minority, because we're Christian minority and I have a disability, so minority. And I think we can like speak into both of those areas in a very unique way. And it's almost like seizing the opportunity, because I think, yes, we can encourage other Christians online and maybe embolden them to share their faith in an authentic way. But I think we can also speak to other people with disabilities. And I think, I find it a lot easier to take advice from someone who's in the same position as me. So, if I'm preaching the gospel at someone and I'm healed and they're not healed, that's going to be a harder pill for them to take, because they'll go, it's all right for you, God healed you, but what about me? And I feel like there's something so special about being able to suffer with people, just like Jesus suffered with us and for us. But that suffering with is so incredibly powerful. And you can speak into people's lives, and you get given an authority when you have struggled and suffered alongside people. And I think let's not look down on that, but let's embrace that and see it for what it truly is. And so I love that we get that opportunity to kind of straddle these really unique communities and people, and we can have a voice that we wouldn't have if, like I said, our life was perfect and I was healed. And I think God can use us far more in the position we're in.
100%. I think the world looks down on weakness, understandably, maybe to some degree, because it feels like it can hold you back. But we love the verse in 2 Corinthians where Paul talks about his thorn in the flesh and he's just desperate to get rid of it. And he says, I prayed and prayed for God to take it away. And he said, no. And then he said to me, my power is made perfect in your weakness. So I'll boast all the more because of my weakness, because I know that like God's power is shown through that. And it's so true. When you look at all throughout scripture and things, it's David, it's the little one that is chosen, not like the strong brothers, and I think it's because that must be God then, and I think there is that witness when you've got joy and peace and purpose and all the things that Jade exemplifies, but the world would look at her and go, you shouldn't have any of those things. Okay, well, what fills that void then? Why does she have things that on the face value you feel like you shouldn't have? And it opens it up really for us to say, well, it's just Jesus.
That's so cool. I really love the kind of like conversation we're having on like changing your perspective on suffering. And I think like as Christians and even outside of the church, we've almost confused like suffering with God doesn't love you. Whereas actually, like, if you read the book of Philippians, Paul tells us that suffering is an opportunity to enter into the story of Jesus. And we actually get to know God in a far deeper way. And we get to know other people. And like you said, like, that's an opportunity for you to like minister to someone else. Maybe someone can come to faith through your story, or you can encourage someone. So I think, yeah, I'm really encouraged by all the different like nuggets that we've been sharing. And I also wanted to give you guys an opportunity as well. Like, if you guys have any questions as we've been talking, like anything's been stirring in you, we'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So we've got a microphone that will be going around. But if you have a question, stick that hand up. We'll come to you. We would love to hear what you guys have to say. So anyone want to go for it? Yep. Got a question over there. Dan's running. He's going around.
I bet you talked right at the beginning about kind of just suddenly coming to fame and that being kind of a change in your direction. I'm just wondering how that's affected like your day-to-day life. Like, have things changed on the school run? Do you have to watch how you treat each other in the supermarket because people are a lot more aware of who you are?
Yeah, it has a bit, like, for sure. I think I remember even just being in Nando's and stuff with the kids, and they were just doing my head in a bit. And even just you think, like, what we've started to notice, most people obviously don't know who we are, but people do like enjoy some of the stuff we do. And we've started noticing there'll be a look where if someone hasn't clocked us, they'll go like this. They'll go. So they scan across, stop,
Subtle.
and then they scan on and things. And so you do notice it a bit. It's really hard when you notice that as well, because you feel like you can't go up to somebody and be like, yes, it is me. Yeah. And be like, what are you talking about?
Well,
you
you made that mistake once, didn't you?
No way.
Oh
No. So I have a rule that I will never be like, because I'll get quite a lot of messages from people being like, oh my goodness, I think I saw you in McDonald's, but I was too nervous to say hello or whatever. So we'll be like, if you ever do see us, do come and say hi. But again, I don't feel like I can go over in case they're like, no, I've just got something in my eye or whatever. But in September, the new reception came in, and one of the reception mums at school, I was walking back home. She turned around and looked at me and went, wow. And I was like,
That's interesting reaction.
even Jade didn't do that. And she was like, just amazing. And I was like, hi, and stuff. And she went, really cool. And I was like, okay. And then she got her phone out and was like, take a photo. So I went, oh, would you like me to like take it? Or like, would you like we together? Like, and she was like, well, no, what I said was, would you like me to take it? And as I went like that to take the selfie of both of us, I realized there was a massive rainbow behind me.
Oh.
And so she had no idea or she wasn't talking about that. I could just see it in her phone. So to her, she was just commenting on, wow, amazing, so cool, about the rainbow. And then I went, oh, would you like me to take a photo? Which she then thought I would then take of just her and the rainbow. And then I got in the photo with her.
That is humbling.
So it was dreadful. Like, and I was like, I can't make Jade do the school run because that's outrageous. But still, so yeah, there have been moments like, but in general, like, I think that, I mean, as I say, most people don't really know who we are and things. And
I think for me as well, nothing much has really changed because I am used to people staring at me just because I've been in a wheelchair. So for me, I'm like, nothing's changed. People, do you know what I mean?
It's
funny.
like, what are they checking out really and things. And also, I think like we're very much like we are in our content. So like, it's not, I mean, online content, it's great being able to do it as a job. I stepped back from church stuff because I found out I had ADHD, and around 1 in 3 people by the time they're 30 with ADHD go self-employed because it's just so overstimulating life sometimes. I found that even more with the kids. So again, it's just been more answers of like God's provision really. Because I was just kept burning out at work and just kept being signed off because I just found everything so overwhelming. So the content kind of taking off at a time, it was still a leap of faith to go full time, but it was a really cool opportunity that God's managed to help us make work. And it's freed us up a lot to enjoy church, enjoy the kids, enjoy making content and work in terms of our own energy levels rather than like a 9 to 5 kind of thing. So yeah.
That's great. Great question. Do we have any more questions going around? There we go.
Hiya. So how do you guys as a couple basically make sure that you're sort of not necessarily always being like 50-50 on sides, but basically making sure that you don't burn each other out in terms of like doing, I don't know, like doing the dishes or like, you know, sort of like just normal stuff.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yeah, I don't think...
I think we complement each other quite well, really, because I think with your ADHD and my paraplegia, almost like we have completely different strengths and weaknesses. So we kind of, it works mix. I think God knew what he was doing. But I also think it's given us grace for the other one because we both have our own limitations. I mean, everybody does in every single relationship. But I think we've got grace for each other because I know what it's like to be more tired because of my disability. But you also know what it's like to be more tired because of your ADHD and overstimulation. So actually, I think in our relationship, it's actually been such a plus because we've both had an understanding of the other one, that if I just had my disability and you didn't have your ADHD or vice versa, like I think we maybe wouldn't have that patience for each other, but I think we do have that.
And I think also, like, it's a cliche, but the whole it takes a village to raise a child, or even a family and support. Like Jade's parents live not far from us and they're fantastic and like such a help. And so I think it is having that community of like literal family, but also church family and people to support. Because there are times, some of the best advice we ever got marriage-wise was attack the problem, not the person, because it's just so easy to feel like, why do you do this? You don't love me because you've done whatever and things. You've left crumbs on the side again. I don't even realise I have. And so I think, whereas when you're specific about things and you're able to address that, I think that's really helpful. And I think we're both quite good communicators with each other.
And I also think the 50-50 thing is a bit of a myth as well, because I think, like, I love Brené Brown, and I remember her talking about this and saying, like, actually, it's very rare that any relationship is 50-50. There's so many different, like, complexities with life, and so actually it fluctuates. And sometimes someone's a 70 and the other one's a 30, or sometimes, you know, someone's, you know, a 40, the other one's a 60, or sometimes you're both on a 20, and you have to have that conversation where you go, well, I've only got 20, you've only got 20. We're going to have a lot of grace for each other, maybe get outside people in to help us. But like, actually, it's kind of communication is key. And I think it's that ongoing communication, like every single relationship, you know, is vital to kind of having a successful relationship and not kind of getting resentful with one another.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think if one person in the relationship wins and the other one loses, you both lose. Like, you are a team, and it's so easy to get caught up in who's the most tired or who's done the most recently, and you only ever see what you do.
We still try though, don't we?
Yeah, and you always win because I can't trump it, can I? Like, you just have to go, and I go, yeah, no, fair, all right. But I think it is trying to model that. But if you've got any advice on how you get kids to do stuff, I'd really appreciate it, because they do nothing.
That's honest. Do we have time for one more?
Do you have any good stories about how your content has helped people either come to faith or maybe join a church or that kind of thing?
Great question. We've had I quite often do TikTok lives, and I feel like they're some of the best opportunity, because for any creator it's a bit more behind the scenes. Like, you're not going to really do a quick 1 minute story there. Like, it's more chatty and conversational like this, really. And the great thing about having worked for a church in the past is people will say, is this your job? And I'll say, yeah, it is now. And what did you do before? And I'm able to talk about faith. And we had a few people come to our church because of it, which is really cool, and just like, coming along. I think so much of it, when you look at most people who don't believe, they don't have good reasons for not believing. They just haven't really thought about it. And I include myself in that before. I had a few things where I was like, how can there be a giant in the Bible? How can therefore it be real? Or how can someone be raised from the dead? Whatever. But in general, I just didn't really understand it. And so I think a lot of the time people haven't really thought about it. They didn't grow up in church. And so the opportunity to put a stone in people's shoe and get them thinking about it, I think is a really good opportunity. We've had quite a few people do alpha courses. Like, we've been pushing people towards that. Look in your area. You find, like, I think it's Church Near Me website and things like that to find. And I think, there's been some really cool opportunities, and even ministering to people and praying for people. We've had, there was a lady who couldn't have children and like reached out to me, and I got this sense, and I don't get it loads, but I just had this feeling like she was having IVF and everything. She was like, I just love you to pray for me. I know you're a Christian. And I just had such a strong sense that she was going to conceive naturally. And I didn't tell her because I just thought, what if it's not from God, basically? And then she messaged me about a week after saying, I just wanted you to know, or about a month later, I think it was actually, but basically said, I'm pregnant and stuff. And I said, look, this might sound wild now, and I know that it's easy for me to say this, but I prayed for you from that moment. And it wasn't IVF, was it? And she was like, no, how did you know? And I was like, because I felt like God told me that it wasn't going to be. And so I think there are cool opportunities, and people...
And even through our book, I think we've had some really like lovely messages from people who've kind of gone through stuff recently.
I'll share this as like probably the last one. I'm aware of time, but we had, I don't know if you heard the tragic situation where a skydiver, the parachute didn't open properly, and a woman died, and the skydiving instructor who was with her died as well. And his auntie reached out to us and said, just really appreciate your prayers, like, and actually your book has been so helpful, because a lot of the book is finding joy though the struggle is real, and talking about what God does and doesn't promise, some of the things we've touched on here, but also Jade's story and God's goodness. And she said, please pray for my family, because his mum, my sister, like, has a faith, but it's been a struggle for years, and this has really been challenging time. And she gave her the book, and she said it really helped her. But then they gave the book to this guy's girlfriend who'd now lost her boyfriend, and she started going to church now. Like, and it's just so cool and humbling, because you always hope it will meet with people, but you're also like, it's just our silly story. And when you're so close to it, you're like, well, even when for years people have been telling Jade to write a bit of her story, write a book, and I remember you were just like, why would anyone care? Like, because it's just your life. Like, you forget. And I think that's the biggest encouragement I give people, is share your story. Like, share your story with people. It doesn't have to be massive. It could be anything. But the more people who know you're a Christian, you'll be surprised how many people, even the people who mock you, will then go, by the way, my like nan's not very well, and I know you're a Christian, could you pray for her? Like, all the time. So just being out there as a Christian and things, I think, and sharing some of your story is just really amazing what God does with just our little offerings. Yeah.
So good. You guys are just so honest and just so like faith-filled, and I think that just speaks to so many people. So yeah, thank you for just sharing your hearts and like sharing some of your story with all of us here. We really appreciate it. But yeah, thank you guys, and thank you for watching this podcast. We'll be having more podcasts coming out, so check it out. But yeah, from us to you, thanks for watching. We'll see you later.
Thank you guys.